Ubisoft's new user agreement might actually give them the legal right to tell you to destroy your games if they decide to shut them down. So don't be surprised if their next patch notes say bug fixes, performance improvements, please burn your copy of Rainbow Six Siege. However, there is a catch, and depending on where you live, this clause in their new end user license agreement might actually be completely unenforceable and maybe even illegal. So in this video, we're diving deep into what's really going on and whether Ubisoft is legally going to enter your house while you're sleeping and snap all your discs in half. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Ubisoft's new EULA will force you to destroy your games. This is end user license agreement. Ubisoft has updated its EULA agreement, which means players will have to destroy their games if and when Ubisoft decides to stop providing support. This was first reported on July 7th, that is today at the time of recording this. Owning a Ubisoft game may be a liability now, thanks to an update to the Ubisoft's EULA agreement spotted initially by Tech4Gamers. It's no secret that Ubisoft has been in a downward spiral over the last year or so after games like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and Star Wars Outlaws underperformed and X-Defiant was shut down. Assassin's Creed Shadows was undoubtedly a critical and commercial success, just not enough a success to keep the company in a good spot. It's unlikely that anything could have stopped that though. Now the onus is on the player to destroy their copy of any Ubisoft game after Ubisoft ends support. Let's actually just take a look, shall we? Let's look at Ubisoft's end user license agreement. This says last updated on January of 2023. However, the clause that everybody is talking about right now is easily found by just hitting Control F and typing destroy, if I can spell. Clause number 8, termination. The EULA is effective from the earlier of the date you purchase, download, or use the product until terminated according to its terms. You and Ubisoft or its licensors may terminate this EULA at any time for any reason. That could be an issue in the EU. We're going to talk about that later in the video. Okay, termination by Ubisoft will be effective upon A, notice to you, or B, termination of your Ubisoft account, if any, or C, at the time of Ubisoft's decision to discontinue offering and or supporting the product. Okay, so either A, they can just reach out and say, hey, the EULA is terminated for you, GG, you're done. Or if they ban you, okay, so if you're playing Rainbow Six Siege and you say something on voice chat that is just horrendous, okay, and an entire Ubisoft account gets terminated, this ends the EULA for you. Okay, and finally, if they turn off the servers, they're like, hey, servers are done, we're done, we're turning it off, we're done, it's over. Okay, then the EULA is effectively terminated. Okay, what does this mean for you, the person that purchased the game? This EULA will terminate automatically if you fail to comply with any of the terms and conditions of this EULA. Upon termination for any reason, you must immediately uninstall the product and destroy all copies of the product in your possession. Bro, what? So if Ubisoft cancels the Assassin's Creed franchise, I gotta snap this disc in half? Is that what you're telling me right now, buddy? That's crazy. But it gets better. Okay, number 9, changes to this end user license agreement or the product. Ubisoft reserves the right in its sole and absolute discretion to revise, update, change, modify, add to, supplement, or delete certain parts of this EULA for security, legal, best practices, or regulatory reasons. Such changes will be effective with or as applicable without prior notice to you. Without prior notice to you. You can review the most current version of this EULA by clicking on the EULA link located on the product or on ubi.com. You are responsible for checking this EULA periodically for changes. Yes, that's right, the burden is on the customer. So every morning when you make your morning coffee, okay, you get to check your email, you get to check Facebook, you check Twitter, you check Instagram, and you also better check the new EULA on Ubisoft website and read it every single morning to make sure that it hasn't changed, because you may be legally required to destroy your products if it does. If any future changes to this EULA are unacceptable to you or cause you to no longer be in agreement or compliance with this EULA, you may terminate this EULA in accordance with section 8 and must immediately uninstall the product and destroy all copies of the product. product. So if you read this and you're like, oh, I don't agree with this whatsoever, great news, your only option is destroy your video games. Your continued use of the product following any revision to this EULA constitutes your complete and irrevocable acceptance of any and all such changes. That's right, folks. In 2025, a video game that you spent $60, $70, $80 on from Ubisoft, even if it was 5 years ago, you are now legally required to destroy the disc if you disagree with these changes. Right now, today, if you're watching this video and you disagree with this, your course of action is to never play again and destroy your copies and uninstall it. That is your only legal route right now. And let me just say that this video that you're watching, the voice that you're hearing right now, my voice, this is for entertainment purposes only. I am not providing legal advice to you. Okay, this video is just for fun. Consult your lawyer if you're serious about this. Okay, I am not a lawyer. I am a white trash overweight goofball on the internet. Okay, but out of curiosity, I had ChatGPT do some deep research on the topic here to see how legal this clause actually is in the United States of America versus the European Union. Okay, and let's talk about if this is actually enforceable in the United States or not, according to the sources that ChatGPT linked here. Okay, it says in the United States, software and game EULAs are generally treated as license agreements rather than sales. This means when you buy an Ubisoft game, you often don't actually own the software copy outright. You merely have a license to use the game under certain conditions. Such licenses can be revoked under those conditions, and courts have often upheld this principle. Key points regarding US law include: 1, you don't own the copy. Under US law, purchasing software is usually governed by a license that specifies that you are a licensee, not an owner. And you know what they say, ladies and gentlemen, if buying is not ownership, then pirating is not. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. For example, Ubisoft, like many publishers, retains title to the game's software and only grants you a personal, non-transferable license to play it. Even the Steam platform now explicitly informs users that they are purchasing a license, not a physical property right. This means your rights are defined by the end user license agreement. But what about first sale doctrine limitations? The US first sale doctrine gives the owner of a lawfully made copy of a work the right to resell or otherwise dispose of that copy. However, this right applies only to owners of the copy, not to licensees. Courts have upheld that if a software EULA clearly declares a transaction to be a license with significant use and transfer restrictions, then the customer is not considered an owner of the copy. For instance, in the landmark Vernor versus Autodesk case, Autodesk's software license forbade resale and even required users who upgraded to a new version to destroy their old copies. And the Ninth Circuit Court accepted these terms as evidence that the transaction was a license rather than a sale. In short, US courts have upheld that EULA terms can override first sale rights when the transaction is structured as a license. Okay, so this so far sounds like it is perfectly legal for Ubisoft to do, which is insane to think about. Let's talk about the enforceability of the destroying copies clause. Okay, because of what we just talked about, a clause requiring users to uninstall or destroy copies upon termination is generally legal and enforceable in the United States if the license is terminated. For example, Ubisoft shuts down the game or bans your account, you no longer have permission to use or keep the software. Continuing to use the game without a valid license could be viewed as copyright infringement, since any running of the software involves making copies of it in memory for which you no longer have authorization. By agreeing to the end user license agreement, you accepted that your right to use the game is conditional, so Ubisoft can legally demand you cease use and destroy copies if those conditions aren't met. In practice, companies rarely, if ever, attempt attempt to prosecute individual consumers for failing to delete an offline game, but legally the EULA's demand carries weight. It's part of the contract you agree to, and US law does not prohibit a publisher from including such a term. The bottom line in the United States is that since you only have a revocable license to Ubisoft's games, not ownership of a copy, Ubisoft's demand that you destroy all copies upon termination is generally lawful in the United States. Courts have upheld these types of EULA restrictions, so a user would have little legal recourse to keep using a game against the publisher's wishes, aside from any practical difficulties of enforcement. Okay, so in the United States, this brand new end user license agreement brought to you by none other than Ubisoft is apparently perfectly legal. Okay, so if you are watching this video right now and you disagree with it, you either gotta destroy your copies, uninstall the games, or contact a lawyer, of which I'm not one. This video was not legal advice. This is purely entertainment. Okay, I'm a goofball. But things are a bit different in the European Union. In the EU, the legal outlook is quite different due to stronger consumer protection rules and a concept of software ownership under copyright law. A clause that allows a publisher to revoke your game at any time and force you to destroy it is likely to be considered unenforceable or illegal under EU law, and this is for a few reasons. Number one, unfair contract terms. EU consumer protection law scrutinizes one-sided EULA provisions. Notably, Annex 1G of Directive 93/13/EEC flags any term as unfair that allows the seller to terminate a contract of indefinite duration without reasonable notice and without a serious reason. Most video games are sold as licenses of indefinite duration, implicitly perpetual unless stated otherwise, right? It doesn't say on the box, you know, good until December 31st 2028, right? Ubisoft's EULA termination clause says Ubisoft may end the license at any time for any reason. We just read that before, okay, with no guarantee of prior notice. Under EU law, such a blanket termination right would likely be deemed unfair to consumers. In fact, a member of the European Parliament pointed out that an arbitrary termination clause like this would violate their directive. If a term is found unfair, it is not binding on the consumer. By contrast, other companies' EULAs, for example Activision's, do include a requirement of reasonable notice before termination, which is an attempt to comply with EU fairness requirements. Ubisoft's lack of any notice or cause is legally problematic in the EU. Therefore, a demand that the user destroy their game copies because Ubisoft ended the service without cause/notice would likely be unenforceable in Europe. The customer could challenge it as an unfair contract term. Beyond that, we have the software ownership and exhaustion of rights. European copyright law also strengthens the user position. The EU recognizes the exhaustion of distribution rights for software. In a landmark case, Ubisoft GmbH v Oracle 2012, the Court of Justice of the EU ruled that when a software copyright holder sells or licenses a copy to a user for unlimited use, a permanent license, it is effectively a sale, and the copyright holder's distribution right over that copy is exhausted. This means the purchaser or the licensee obtains the right to continue using that copy indefinitely and even to resell it to someone else despite any EULA language to the contrary. In other words, in the EU, you are much closer to being the owner of the copy you bought, even if the EULA calls it a license. A clause requiring you to destroy all copies of a game you legally acquired would conflict with the principle that your copy is yours to use or dispose of as you wish once the publisher has been paid. For example, Oracle's attempt to contractually forbid resale of downloaded software was invalidated by the CJEU. The buyer could resell the software and Oracle could not oppose it as long as the original owner stopped using their copy. By the same token, if you've purchased an Ubisoft game, Ubisoft cannot simply reclaim or nullify your copy arbitrarily. Your right to use that copy is protected by law. A demand to destroy it after support ends would likely have no legal force in the EU because it undermines the ownership rights that EU grants to software purchasers. Now, the final bullet point we have to talk about here is practical implications. Okay, it's worth noting that current EU law does not yet explicitly guarantee that online dependent games remain playable forever. There's no specific statute forcing a company to keep surfers online for X amount of years. However, if Ubisoft were to terminate a game license without a valid reason or without valid notice, a European consumer could argue that this breaches their statutory rights. The likely remedy under EU consumer law would be to deem the termination clause void and possibly entitle the consumer to a refund or compensation for losing access. More importantly, the user would not be legally obligated to comply with an unfair term, so the requirement to destroy their copies would not hold up in court. In an EU context, regulators or courts could even sanction such a clause as unlawful. In short, the EULA cannot take away your fundamental right to use the copy of the game you obtained, except in limited circumstances like a serious breach on your part. The bottom line in the EU is that Ubisoft's EULA clause demanding destruction of game copies upon termination is very likely unenforceable in the EU. Consumer protection law deems unilateral no clause termination rights unfair, and EU copyright doctrine treats a purchased game copy as your property in many respects. So in Europe, a publisher cannot legally compel you to destroy or stop using a game you acquired unless there is a legitimate reason and due process. Even then, the consumer's rights are stronger than in the United States. And I think this is why the most recent Stop Killing Games initiative has gained so much traction, especially with EU consumers, because I feel like consumer protection in the EU is just much stronger. They're like a decade ahead of us here in the United States, and it's truthfully quite embarrassing. Like, we are so anti-consumer in the United States, it's actually ridiculous. You basically own nothing, and it's really sad. So now let's take a look at what Reddit has to say about this new end user license agreement. This was posted over on r/Asmongold, so I'm sure you guys know that people are going to love this clause. Okay, so this person says, okay, so it isn't against the law, Lamau, more reason for the initiative to pass some laws. So this person is saying, like, okay, and like we just went over, in the United States this EULA is perfectly legal apparently, which is insane, and we need change. Absolutely. This person says it's morally correct to pirate Ubisoft titles with 44 upvotes. This guy responds, I don't even want that garbage on my PC. I was just thinking of that Assassin's Creed Shadows the other day. I looked to see if it was being pirated on Pirate Bay. Turns out it's not at all. It was such a bad game, not even game crackers are seeding it, Lamau. Someone says it has de novo, so it's not possible. I had to look it up, stand corrected, then can't believe they invested in a flop. It's correct to pirate. I wouldn't even pirate their games. Someone says it isn't even a new EULA, it's from 2023. Source Mutahar. Honestly, you don't even have to source Mutahar. We looked at this before. It says last updated January 2023. Gotcha. Buy, refund, install crack, needed update, repeat, or never play Ubi slop games at all. This company really can't die quick enough. Laws and rules that are not enforceable are not real. That's also true, right? If you buy the game and it's on a disc and you could play it offline and they're not going to come kick down your door, what are they going to do? It's honestly unreasonable, right? It's truthfully unreasonable. And if a law is so absurdly unreasonable, should it even be a law to begin with? I feel like it shouldn't, right? Like that's a red flag, right? Like if you can't even enforce it and it's unreasonable and it's just ridiculous by nature, it shouldn't be legal. Here's an idea. Let's not buy from these publishers ever again. Don't worry, y'all. People stopped buying Ubisoft games a long time ago. If you check their current stock price, which Ubisoft is apparently publicly listed on the Paris Stock Exchange, okay, Ubisoft Entertainment is currently sitting at $8.97. Today it fell 1.58%. If we look at the 5-year back, their 5-year peak was in February of 2021 at $83.52. But if we look at all time, their peak was actually in June of 2018 at a staggering $94. So they've lost 90% of their value in the last 8 years. Yeah, that's a bad sign. And you know what this graph actually shows? It shows that Ubisoft does not know what the consumer wants. They do not know what gamers want. They don't know what gamers enjoy. They don't know why gamers enjoyed some of the franchises that they did make that were successful. The original Assassin's Creed games, Rainbow Six, Far Cry, Prince of Persia, right? They don't understand why their original franchises took off and why gamers loved them so much. They've lost sight. They have lost their way. They no longer are giving the consumer what the consumer wants, and that is abundantly clear and has been for, I don't know, at least 5 years now, if not longer, right? Since 2020, 2021, Ubisoft has tanked. Like, they have objectively tanked, and they've been shitting the bed the entire time, and they've made bad decision after bad decision, and they dig their grave deeper and deeper and deeper. And there's no wonder why when a new game comes out by Ubisoft, people don't want to play it, they don't want to buy it, they don't want to pre-order it, they don't want to support it, because Ubisoft is like the poster boy of what is wrong with gaming in 2025. Okay, so now that we have a general understanding of what has changed with Ubisoft's user agreement, okay, and we've looked at, you know, the great value Walmart version of what it could mean legally, potentially, based on what ChatGPT says, which, by the way, is not legal advice. Okay, I've said that multiple times in this video, purely entertainment. But what should you do as a consumer with this new knowledge? Okay, because as I showed you, this is in effect right now. Okay, what you should do is, number one, gosh, man, this really sucks, but you probably should start reading end user license agreements. And two, understand that when you buy games in 2025, you're really not owning anything, at least in the United States. Whether you buy it physically, whether you buy it digitally, you really don't own anything. These are all licenses to access the game. I even looked my Borderlands Handsome collection on the PS4. That also, it's a disc in the box. Okay, I can hold it up to you, I can show you the disc, you can see it right here, but this beautiful little piece of paper here with so much text on it that you would think this looks like a barcode. The camera can't even pick up that this is text, okay, but it actually is the license agreement, and it says, subject to this agreement and terms and conditions, licensor hereby grants you a non-exclusive, non-transferable, limited and revocable right and license to use one copy of the software for your personal non-commercial use for gameplay on a single game platform unless otherwise expressly specified in the software documentation. Okay, so this is for Borderlands, which is a 2K Gearbox game. Okay, so this is not exclusive to Ubisoft, this is not exclusive to digital downloads, this is a physical game. It's right here, I have it in my hand. Okay, and the fun part about this is that I bought this game used at GameStop, which means I think I obtained this illegally, perhaps, because it's not, I mean, I'm not, or maybe I obtained it legally, but the original licensee sold it illegally. I don't know, but it's actually ridiculous. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, what we really need is change. We need some legal framework that protects consumers. Okay, I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't demand I destroy your game. What are you talking about? That's insane. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please consider dropping a thumbs up. It really helps out my small channel a ton. It'll tell YouTube that you actually like the video, and it might share it with more people on YouTube, which helps me out tremendously. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the bell to be notified the next time I upload a gaming news video, and comment down below your thoughts on this Ubisoft license agreement. Do we need more consumer protections for video games, and is Stop Killing Games a nice place to start? Or do you think that it's perfectly fair for game developers to just sell you a license and that's how it should be, and that's it? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.